July 14, 1969. As twilight falls over the border between Honduras and El Salvador, vintage fighter planes scream across the sky. Bombs slam into fuel tanks, artillery rattles the countryside, and infantry troops surge across the frontier. Thousands of people are about to die in a brutal 100-hour military conflict, and the official catalyst? A game of football. Weeks earlier, the two nations met in a violent, high-stakes World Cup qualifier. Honduran fans harassed the Salvadoran team all night. Salvadoran fans retaliated by flying a bloody rag instead of the Honduran flag. Riots erupted across both capitals, diplomatic ties snapped overnight, and within days, actual war broke out. It became known to history as the Soccer War. When we watch football today, when we see Lionel Messi sliding across a pristine pitch or Cristiano Ronaldo driving millions into a frenzy, we think we're just watching a game. A game played with a leather ball and 22 people chasing it. But history tells a far crazier story. Football isn't just a sport. It is an invisible social contract. It's a global proxy for war, a weapon of political control, a tool for revolution, and the ultimate tribal glue holding our modern world together. If you ask the average fan where football was born, they'll tell you 19th century England. But if you want to find the true roots of kicking a ball into a net, you have to travel back over 2,000 years to ancient Han Dynasty China. The game was called Cuju. Military commanders used it to keep soldiers in peak fighting condition, kicking a hair-stuffed leather ball through a tiny opening made of silk and bamboo. Emperors were obsessed with watching it, court poets wrote verses about it, and for centuries, it was the ultimate test of physical discipline. Fast forward to medieval Europe, and the game lost every single ounce of its ancient elegance. In medieval England, folk football wasn't an organized match, it was an absolute free-for-all. Entire villages would gather to kick a blown-up pig's bladder from one end of town to the other. There were no refs, no red cards, and zero boundaries. Breaking legs, smashing windows, and full-blown riots weren't accidents, they were part of the strategy. It was raw, violent, tribal energy. And it was so destructive that English kings literally tried to ban it for over 400 years. Now, pause for a second and think about this. If kings kept outlawing the game, and every match turned into a miniature street war, how did football survive to become the biggest sport on the planet? The answer lies in the dark smoke of the Industrial Revolution. In the mid-1800s, factory bosses realized they had a massive problem. Hundreds of thousands of exhausted workers were pouring into overcrowded cities, spending their only free time drinking, rioting, or whispering about unionizing. So, the ruling class made a calculated gamble. They gave workers Saturday afternoons off, handed them a ball, and told them to go play. Football became the ultimate pressure valve for the working class. Instead of revolting against their bosses, workers could channel their frustration into beating the neighboring factory town on the pitch. In October 1863, a group of men met at Freemasons' Tavern in London to write down a single, standardized set of rules. They banned hacking people's shins, outlawed carrying the ball with your hands, and created the modern game. Practically overnight, factory teams like Dial Square, a group of munitions workers, turned into massive clubs like Arsenal. The game was no longer a riot. It was an organized, pacifying engine for industrial society. By the late 20th and early 21st centuries, football had grown way beyond local factory rivalries. It transformed into a multi-billion-dollar geopolitical asset. When you look closely at modern football, the beautiful game starts to reveal some uncomfortable realities. Over the last few decades, authoritarian regimes and megacorporations realized that buying iconic clubs or hosting global tournaments was the fastest way to scrub their public image, a strategy we now call sports washing. We saw host nations spend tens of billions building air-conditioned mega-stadiums in the middle of the desert, built on the backs of exploited migrant laborers. We saw FIFA executives taking brown envelopes stuffed with cash to award hosting rights, turning the world's favorite pastime into a private bank account for global elites. The sport that was once given to factory workers to keep them quiet is now used to distract the global public from human rights abuses, extreme greed, and political corruption. The stakes didn't change, the pitch just got bigger. And yet, despite all the billions, all the corruption, and all the dark politics, the game itself remains untouched at its core. Because football doesn't live in FIFA's headquarters or inside corporate boardrooms. It lives on dirt fields in South America, on concrete alleyways in Africa, on wet grass pitches in Europe, and in every corner of the world where two rocks can mark a goalpost. It's the one language that needs no translation. A simple leather sphere that can bring two enemy nations to a standstill, or make 4 billion people hold their breath at the exact same second. If you loved this dive into history's wild side, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell icon, and drop a comment below. What crazy piece of history should we unpack next on History Plates? Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.